You're watching CBSE Easy, and today we are tackling the CBSE Class 10 2025 question paper, set 31111 in detail, starting with a deep dive into the Section A MCQs.
Welcome to Section A. This section contains 20 multiple choice questions, 1 mark each. For each question, we will identify the correct option and the underlying scientific logic. Question 1. Electrolysis of water is a decomposition reaction. What is the mass ratio of hydrogen and oxygen gases liberated at the electrodes? The correct answer is option B, 1 to 8. While the volume ratio is 2 to 1, oxygen's higher atomic mass results in the specific 1 to 8 mass ratio. Question 2. What are the products formed when aluminium and magnesium are burnt in the presence of air? The correct answer is option C, aluminium oxide and magnesium oxide. Both metals react with atmospheric oxygen to form stable, basic metal oxides. Question 3. The pH values of 4 solutions A, B, C and D are 5, 7, 13 and 3. What is the nature of these solutions respectively? The correct answer is option D, weak acid, neutral, strong base and strong acid. Always remember that as the pH value decreases, the concentration of hydrogen ions increases. Question 4. In reactions between acids and bases or acids and metal oxides, what is the consistent common product? The correct answer is option A, salt and water. These are all variations of neutralization reactions wherein acid and base counteract each other. Question 5. Element A loses electrons and B gains electrons to form compound C. Which property will C not show? The correct answer is option B, low boiling point. As an ionic compound, C has strong electrostatic bonds that require significant energy to break. Question 6. What is the primary role of salivary amylase in the human digestive system? The correct answer is option C, breaking down starch into sugar. This enzyme initiates chemical digestion by targeting complex carbohydrates in the mouth. Question 7. Which plant hormone is responsible for a shoot bending towards a light source? The correct answer is option A, auxin. Auxins migrate to the shady side of the plant, causing those cells to elongate and bend the stem towards the light. Question 8. In a Mendelian cross between round yellow and wrinkled grain seeds, what is the phenotype of the F1 generation? Answer. The correct answer is option D, all round and yellow. This occurs because round and yellow are the dominant alleles that mask the recessive traits. Question 9. Why does lactic acid build up in human muscle cells during intense exercise? The correct answer is option B, lack of oxygen. When oxygen is limited, the body performs anaerobic respiration, which converts pyruvate into lactic acid. Question 10. Which group of synthetic chemicals is the primary cause of ozone layer depletion? The correct answer is option C, chlorofluorocarbons. These compounds release chlorine atoms that catalyze the breakdown of ozone molecules in the stratosphere. Question 11. Approximately what percentage of energy is transferred from one trophic level to the next in an ecosystem? The correct answer is option B, 10%. The remaining 90% is lost as heat or consumed by the organism's metabolic activities. Question 12. If the radius of curvature of a spherical mirror is 20 centimeters, what is its focal length? The correct answer is option A, 10 centimeters. The focal length of any spherical mirror is exactly half of its radius of curvature. Question 13. Which type of mirror is used by dentists to see an enlarged image of a patient's teeth? The correct answer is option B, concave mirror. When an object is placed close to the pole, a concave mirror produces a virtual, erect and magnified image. Question 14. A convex lens forms a real, inverted image of the same size as the object. Where must the object be placed? The correct answer is option C, at 2f1.
This is the specific position where the magnification is exactly 1, resulting in equal object and image sizes. Question 15. Why is it impossible for two magnetic field lines to intersect? The correct answer is option D. A compass cannot point in two directions at once. Intersection would imply two different directions for the magnetic field at a single point. Question 16. What happens to a ray of light when it passes from air into a denser medium like glass? The correct answer is option A. It bends towards the normal. The reduction in the speed of light causes the ray to refract towards the perpendicular. Question 17. Which color of the visible spectrum is least deviated when white light passes through a prism? The correct answer is option B. Red light. Red has the longest wavelength and highest speed in glass, resulting in the minimum angle of deviation. Question 18. What is the SI unit used to measure the power of a lens? The correct answer is option C. Diopter. One diopter is defined as the power of a lens with a focal length of exactly 1 meter. Question 19. Assertion. Magnetic field lines are closed curves. Reason. They emerge from the North Pole and enter the South Pole outside the magnet. The correct answer is option A. Both assertion and reason are true, and the reason is the correct explanation. The continuous path from north to south creates a closed loop. Question 20. Assertion. Food chains generally consist of only 3 or 4 trophic levels. Reason. The amount of available energy decreases significantly at each level. The correct answer is option A. Both assertion and reason are true, and the reason is the correct explanation. The 10% rule limits the number of sustainable levels in a chain.
We now move to section B. These questions require a bit more detail. To score full marks here, aim for 2 distinct logical points in your response. Question 21. Describe the observations when zinc granules are added to dilute sulfuric acid. How do you test the gas evolved? To get both marks, state 2 things. First, you will see bubbles of hydrogen gas forming around the zinc granules and the test tube will become warm. Second, if you bring a burning splinter near the mouth of the tube, the gas will burn with a characteristic pop sound. Question 22. Explain the process of budding in hydra with the help of its stages.
Answer.
Budding is an asexual process. First, a small bud develops as an outgrowth due to repeated cell division at one specific site. Second, this bud grows into a tiny individual and eventually detaches from the parent body to live independently. Question 23. What is the difference between systolic and diastolic blood pressure? Also, state the main function of platelets in our blood.
Answer.
Systolic pressure is the maximum pressure in the arteries during heart contraction, while diastolic is the minimum pressure when the heart rests between beats. The main function of platelets is to help in blood clotting at the site of an injury to prevent excessive blood loss. Question 24. A concave lens has a focal length of 15 centimeters. At what distance should an object be placed so that it forms an image 10 centimeters from the lens?
Answer.
For a concave lens, both the focal length and image distance are negative. By applying the lens formula, we calculate that the object must be placed at a distance of 30 centimeters. The negative sign indicates the object is on the left side of the lens. Question 25. A piece of wire of resistance R is cut into 5 equal parts. These parts are then connected in parallel. If the equivalent resistance of this combination is R prime, find the ratio of R to R prime.
Answer.
When a wire is cut into 5 parts, each part has a resistance of R divided by 5. Connecting these 5 parts in parallel results in a new total resistance of R divided by 25. Therefore, the ratio of the original resistance to the new resistance is 25:1. Question 26. Why is the damage to the ozone layer a cause for concern? What steps are being taken to limit this damage?
Answer.
Ozone layer depletion is dangerous because it allows harmful ultraviolet radiation to reach the earth, causing skin cancer and eye damage. To limit this, international agreements like the Montreal Protocol have been signed to phase out the production of ozone-depleting substances like chlorofluorocarbons.
Section C. Short answer questions, 3 marks each. Moving on to Section C. These 3-mark questions require a structured explanation. For every answer, we will provide 3 distinct points to ensure you meet the marking criteria. Question 27. How is zinc extracted from its carbonate and sulfide ores? Write the chemical equations involved.
Answer.
Zinc extraction involves 3 main steps. First, the carbonate ore is heated in limited air, a process called calcination, to form zinc oxide. Second, the sulfide ore is heated in excess air, known as roasting, to also produce zinc oxide. Finally, the zinc oxide is reduced using carbon or coke to obtain pure zinc. Question 28. What is rusting? State the 2 necessary conditions for rusting of iron and suggest 2 methods to prevent it.
Answer.
Rusting is the slow oxidation of iron to form a flaky brown substance called hydrated ferric oxide. To get full marks, remember the 2 mandatory conditions, the presence of both oxygen and moisture. You can prevent rusting by either painting the surface to block air contact or by galvanization, which is coating the iron with a protective layer of zinc. Question 29. Differentiate between nastic and tropic movements in plants. Provide 1 example for each. Use this comparison for your answer. Nastic movements are immediate and do not depend on the direction of the stimulus, like the folding of leaves in a touch-me-not plant. Tropic movements are slow and directional growth responses, such as a stem bending towards light. While nastic movements are usually reversible, tropic movements are permanent growth changes.
Question 30. Explain how the sex of a child is determined in human beings. Answer. Sex determination is purely genetic. Females have 2 X chromosomes, while males have 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. If a sperm carrying an X chromosome fertilizes the egg, the child will be a girl with double X chromosomes. If the sperm carries a Y chromosome, the child will be a boy with XY chromosomes. Thus, the father's genetic contribution determines the sex. Question 31. Draw a ray diagram to show the formation of an image when an object is placed between the pole and the principal focus of a convex mirror. State the characteristics of the image. Answer. In this diagram, the image forms behind the mirror. One ray parallel to the principal axis appears to diverge from the focus, and another ray directed towards the center of curvature reflects back along the same path. The resulting image is always virtual, erect, and diminished in size regardless of the object's position. Question 32. Why is the circulation of blood in the human heart called double circulation? State its significance. Answer. It is called double circulation because blood passes through the heart twice during one complete cycle. The first loop is pulmonary circulation to the lungs and the second is systemic circulation to the rest of the body. This separation is significant because it prevents the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, ensuring a highly efficient supply of oxygen to the body. Question 33. An electric heater is rated 1500 watts and 220 volts. Calculate the current drawn by the heater and the resistance of its element. To solve this, first use the power formula. Current equals power divided by voltage. 1500 divided by 220 gives us approximately 6.82 amperes. Next, use Ohm's law. Resistance equals voltage divided by current. 220 divided by 6.82 gives us a resistance of approximately 32.25 ohms. That completes section C. You can now move on to the next segment of your paper.
We have reached section D. These are the 5-mark long answer questions. To secure maximum marks, your responses must be comprehensive, well-structured, and include all necessary technical definitions. Question 34. What are isomers? Draw the structures of the 2 isomers of butene with the molecular formula C4H8. Explain why their physical properties might differ. Answer. A high-scoring answer starts with a clear definition. Isomers are compounds that share the same molecular formula but have different structural arrangements of atoms. For butene, which is C4H8, there are 2 primary structural isomers. First, identify but1-ene, where the double bond is located between the first and second carbon atoms. Second, identify but2-ene, where the double bond is positioned in the center between the second and third carbons. Although they have the same number of carbon and hydrogen atoms, their spatial blueprint is different. This structural variation leads to different physical properties such as boiling points and densities because the shape of the molecule affects how closely they can pack together. This illustrates the fundamental principle that in organic chemistry, structure dictates function.
Question 35. Describe the structure and specific functions of the ovary, the oviduct, and the uterus in the human female reproductive system. How is the DNA content kept constant in the offspring? This answer requires a functional breakdown of three critical organs. Point 1. The ovaries are the primary reproductive organs. They produce the female gametes or eggs and secrete essential hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Point 2. The oviducts, also known as fallopian tubes, serve as the passage for the egg and are the specific site where fertilization by a sperm occurs. Point 3. The uterus is a hollow muscular organ designed to support a developing fetus. Its lining thickens every month to prepare for the potential implantation of a fertilized egg. To address the second part of the question, explain that DNA stability is maintained through meiosis. Gametes are formed with only half the usual number of chromosomes. When the egg and sperm fuse during fertilization, the full chromosome count is restored, ensuring the species' DNA remains constant across generations. Question 36. State Snell's law of refraction. Define the refractive index of a medium and explain its relationship with the speed of light. To master this 5-mark physics question, begin with the formal law. Snell's law states that for a given pair of media, the ratio of the sine of the angle of incidence to the sine of the angle of refraction is a constant value. This constant is known as the refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first. The refractive index is a measure of how much a light ray bends when entering a new material. Mathematically, it is the ratio of the speed of light in a vacuum to the speed of light in that specific medium. A higher refractive index means the light travels slower and bends more towards the normal. Conclude by stating that this optical density is what determines the visual path of light as it moves through different environments, such as from air into water or glass.
That completes Section D. You are now ready to move on to the final case study questions. Section E, case study questions. 4 marks each. These questions test your ability to apply scientific principles to complex, real-world scenarios. Listen carefully as we break down the multiple parts of each case. Question 37. The chlor-alkali process. This case study examines the industrial electrolysis of a concentrated sodium chloride solution, also known as brine. What are the 3 main products of this process, and what is one specific use for each? To earn all 4 marks, you must identify each product and its application. First, chlorine gas is released at the anode. It is widely used for water treatment and the manufacturing of PVC. Second, hydrogen gas is released at the cathode and serves as a vital fuel and a raw material for making ammonia. Third, sodium hydroxide remains in the solution. It is an essential base used in the manufacture of soaps, detergents, and paper. This chemical blueprint is a perfect example of how one simple reaction can provide the building blocks for multiple industries.
Question 38. Photosynthesis in desert plants. Standard photosynthesis involves taking in carbon dioxide during the day. However, desert plants have a different survival strategy to prevent water loss. How does their timing differ, and what is the intermediate step involved? In this 4-mark case study, the focus is on the timing shift. Unlike most plants, desert plants keep their stomata tightly closed during the day to conserve precious moisture. Instead, they open them at night to take in carbon dioxide, which they store as an intermediate organic acid. During the following day, when sunlight is available, they use that stored carbon dioxide to complete the process of photosynthesis. This adaptation is a brilliant biological solution to surviving in extreme heat without dehydrating. Question 39. Domestic electrical safety. In our homes, electricity is delivered through a specific set of wires and safety devices. Explain the vital roles played by the earth wire and the fuse in a standard household circuit. Answer. For the final question of the paper, divide your answer into 2 distinct safety protocols. First, explain that the earth wire is a low-resistance emergency path. If a fault causes the metal casing of an appliance to become live, the current flows safely into the ground rather than through the user. Second, describe the fuse as a sacrificial gatekeeper. It contains a wire with a low melting point that breaks the circuit if the current exceeds a safe limit. For example, if a 1000-watt iron draws more than 4.5 amperes. Together, these 2 components form the fundamental safety blueprint that prevents both electric shocks and house fires. That concludes our complete audio guide for the 2025 Science Blueprint. Use these logical frameworks and step-by-step deductions to tackle your exams with confidence. Good luck with your preparation.
Thank you for watching with us. See you next time.